So today's session, really excited. As I mentioned, we have Raven McMahon from UA Local 170, Angeline Camille from IBEW Local 993, and Valerie Vanderick from the Aboriginal Apprenticeship Board. And Valerie will be the guest moderator. So I'm just going to ask folks just to give a brief little introduction of themselves. So what union or organization do you represent? What do you do with your union organization, and how long have you been in your career? And then from there, we're going to go right into the panel.
My name is Raven. I'm with Union Local 170, plumbers, pipe fitters, sprinklers, and welders, and I've been with them since 2009. And I also hold a B gas fitter ticket.
Hi, I am in the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Union Local 993 here in Kamloops, and I am currently the new Indigenous coordinator for our local. And I have been here with the union for almost 14 years now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Valerie Vanderwyk, and I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for British Columbia, New Brunswick, and intermittently right now for Saskatchewan and Alberta for the Aboriginal Apprenticeship Board of Ontario through our expansion process throughout Canada.
Okay, awesome. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Valerie to take it from here.
Fantastic. Brandon, I'm hoping that we can take 5 minutes for both Raven and for Angeline, just so that they can put forward a story from their perspective. I think that the message of how they got to where they are today is extremely important. And I believe that true stories hold impact. So with that said, I'd like to start with Raven, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Valerie. So my name is Raven McMahon. I am from the Gitxaala Nation. I am of the Raven Gunhada clan from the House of Jawalax. I currently live in Surrey, BC. I am a licensed plumber and a B gas fitter. I'm a proud member of Local 170. I have been working in the Lower Mainland on new construction high-rise buildings. I enjoy the challenges of each day as they are learning curves and help me to grow in my position and to build professional relationships. I choose plumbing as my trade, which I went out into the field to gain experience as a plumber. There were definitely challenges as I found that I had to prove myself. I had to prove myself to myself and to others. I was determined to face the challenges head on. I enjoyed every learning experience, working with others and working towards my chosen career as a plumber. Yes, some days were harder than others. I overcame the hard days and lived by the credo, this too shall pass. And what I don't do today will be waiting for me tomorrow. I had to believe that my hard work would pay off. The biggest difficulties in life were what I would create for myself. And by changing perspective, I was able to see myself surmounting to the challenges that anything is possible and achievable if we really want it. Halfway through my four-year apprenticeship, I struggled with addiction. I got lost and I took a wrong turn in my life, and I made some choices that would prevent me from continuing my apprenticeship. It was dark and lonely as I had failed myself and my children. My union reached out to me and offered me help. We all know that in addiction, if you are not ready, you won't and can't accept help. Things had to get worse for me before they got better. To realize where my choices were taking me. When enough was enough and I hit rock bottom, I reached out to my father. He helped me start the journey back to a life worth living through the help of AA. I had to go away to heal myself and for my children. I had to address and heal the broken parts of me, to walk in the strength and to move forward. I am grateful for such a strong union and compassionate, the Association of Journeymen and apprentices, UA Local 170. They never gave up on me, and I was able to come back and successfully complete my apprenticeship. I am now a licensed plumber and ticketed B-gas fitter. I work in Vancouver on new high-rise buildings from the ground up, and I enjoy learning, teaching others what was taught to me. I believe we learn from each other, and when we make a mistake, it's a lesson and an opportunity, and that is what helps us grow. And when we take that lesson and gain knowledge from it, and not to repeat it, that is success. Some people ask me, would I change anything? My answer is no. Everything in my path, everything I endured, choices I made, taught me lessons in life. Whether it's the strength I carry today to the wisdom and knowledge I am able to navigate towards my chosen career, life and goals. My 2 children, who are also following in the direction of the trades, my son Isley is an apprentice plumber, and my daughter Jasmine will be attending BCIT this year for piping foundation. My husband is also a plumber. He has been my mentor in my early stages of my career and continues to support me today. I am grateful today, and I want to thank my union, Local 170, for their support, my fellow brothers and sisters across the country, my family, my friends, and thank you especially to the Aboriginal Apprenticeship Board for inviting me to share my story. I appreciate the work you do for others and helping them move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raven. I always appreciate your very candid and honest approach to things when I hear you speak, and it's really moving. So I'd like to go on to Angie now, Angeline Camille of IBW 993, just to take a few minutes here and give us some background on yourself.
Great. My name is Angeline Camille. I am born in Kamloops, BC, on the Kamloops Indian Reserve, Reservation number 1. I am a 2nd generation to residential school survivors. And how I got into this, I was about 24 years old at the peak of my addictions and my drug and alcohol abuse, and decided I needed something better in life. I started with my upgrading, found an access to trades program, which took me through 5 different trades. And when I come out of there, I came out with going for my electrical. I've been on this journey for 20 years now. Crazy to talk like that. But here I did 6 years of trying with private companies, residential companies, and they would only work me for 5.5 months. In Canada, there's a law where these small companies can hire you for 6 months before they indent you into a trade, which I'm hoping someday that will change, because I did that for 6 years and I didn't even get 1 hour credited to me. A friend of my mom's retired from the Union Hall, IBW here in Kamloops, and he talked me in to coming into the hall, and it was his last request to get me into the union. And I've been here for 14 years, and I am so grateful for the work and the experiences I get from the union and the support from the Brotherhood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie. Again, as I stated, true stories have the most impact, and I really appreciate you both having the courage to come forward and share where you have been and where you are going and where you are today. So with that said, I'd like to start with the questions that we have outlined for this particular session. And the first one you've touched on a little bit, but how did you get into your career? And Raven, if we could just start with you, that would be great.
Sure. So there was an opportunity for women's in the trade, and it was offered through the Piping Industry Apprenticeship Board out in Delta. So I went into this employment center one day, and I asked them if there was any, just kind of desperate looking for stuff, right? And the lady checked her fax machine, and there was the fax on there that had an outline of an opportunity for women exploratory program. So I asked her to get a copy of that. So from that copy, I went and followed up on it. I went out to the Union Hall, I applied, and I was successfully accepted. And from there, I took what they call was WIT at the time, which is Women in Trades Training. And what it did was it gave the women an opportunity to explore 4 different trades, which were plumbing, sprinkler fitting, and steam fitting, and welding. And I chose the plumbing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Angie, if you could just elaborate on that for us, that would be great.
I started in the Access to Trades program after I took some upgrading because I dropped out of high school, so I had to do a lot of upgrading. And in this class, it was for both First Nations men and women. It was a mixed class. And out of the 16 students, 6 of us went on to a trades, and only 3 of us came out with red seals, 2 carpenters and an electrician out of that class. And in that class, I went through carpentry, welding, electrical, plumbing, and cabinetry. I wanted to be a carpenter, but that was like a 2-year waiting list. I wanted to be a welder, but that was a year's waiting list. So I became an electrician. and I'm really grateful for this experiences.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So let's move on to the next question. What kind of work did you do before you got into your current trade? So what other careers maybe did you have? We'll start with Raven.
Okay. Well, I worked in office settings. I also went to Stenberg College, and I got a certificate in the healthcare field, which I am also certified resident care tenant. I did some tree planting on the coast. I worked as a roofer down here in the Lower Mainland. Yeah, kind of a bunch of different things.
Well versed. And Angie, how about you?
I was a bartender, waitress, laborer, anything I could get my hands on. I was in retail sales. I also worked for my sister's painting company for about 10 years. And through that company, I did a little bit of carpentry and drywalling. But mostly I've been just in waitressing and bartending. And I'm still good at a bartender.
Always good to have a backup, right?
Yeah, there's always a good backup plan.
Okay. And for our next question, what are some of the barriers that you faced getting into the trade? Again, we'll start with Raven.
Okay. So some of the barriers I faced getting into plumbing as an apprentice was obviously the experience and the confidence. When I was on the job, I wasn't sure if, I was doing it properly or if it was good enough. Just those kind of things to overcome, being the only female, having to prove myself, prove that I can do what others can do at the same.
Awesome. And Angie?
Some of the barriers I faced was, like I said, through the private sector, was working for 5.5 months as a laborer, barely getting $10 an hour, and then getting laid off. And then they'd go to the school and get themselves another apprentice and work them. And that's on and on. And I would like to see that change someday for the up and coming apprentices. But the biggest barrier out there is is the, the old saying, the old boys club, and it's not just white men, it's all men. They have to prove that you do not belong here, or I did not belong there. So a lot of times I had to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard as any man on that job. If we were pulling cable or digging holes, I was never allowed to be the one to quit first. Always had to, you know, work harder than them. I always think, if a man could actually work as hard as me, we'd probably get most of these jobs done faster.
I'm going to agree with you. Um, so I guess what I'm taking away from that is that gender bias really played a role for you. And then Raven, with you, it was confidence and again, because of the gender relation of being a woman on the site. Okay.
Mhm.
So our next question that we have is, are there specific barriers that Indigenous communities face working in the trade and construction sector? So we're talking more about your heritage now. Were there any sort of barriers that you had to overcome in order to participate in that particular sector of employment?
Hmm. Well, what comes to my mind for that would be, I guess, access to remote areas. Because where I'm from, it's 45 miles off the coast of Prince Rupert, right? So in order for me to gain some opportunity, I had to move away, which I did, and I moved down to the Lower Mainland because employment is more down here. Um, I think a barrier, I guess, being Aboriginal facing here would be community support. There's, having, on Facebook, for instance, see, I'm connected still with my community, family up there. When it comes to certain seasons for foods, people will post pictures and, those kind of things are missed, that we can't really get down here, But yeah, that kind of stuff is a barrier, connecting with the community and, not being able just to go down the street and, see your aunt or something. You probably got to drive about, I don't know, 5-10 kilometers maybe to see a relative if they live down here, right?
So just so that I'm understanding, and I certainly do appreciate what you're saying about the sacrifice of community, because Indigenous people, families, the community is the family. So when you're moving away from that in order to attain employment in the construction sector, because as we know in construction, the job moves and you move to where the work is, right? So certainly I can appreciate what you're saying there. And Angie, how about you? Was there anything that you found was sort of an obstacle or a barrier for you coming from an Indigenous community, working in construction in the trades?
In my trade, it's a lot of traveling. I'm home, like I'm gone out of a month, usually three weeks out of the month, and I'm home barely a week. And being Indigenous with a very large family, I have to say I am the youngest of 22 children, and and my father was a very loving man. He had 3 wives and a couple of spares, and I'm the very youngest. So when being such a close family, because I'm also really close to my mother's family, and that's an entire nation. And but when there's funerals or something's happening at home, I'm not allowed to just drop my work and go and be home and support my family. And a lot of times I'm called an apple, because I work in a non-native community. I work off reserve. And then I come home, I got this good money, driving a nice car, and my community, because I'm not here supporting them during the time of their needs, they don't support me, you know. When I'm traveling and I'm gone, I'm literally considered off reserve, right, to my community. And, you know, really missing a lot of the family, you know, out there, you know, when you got funerals and you know the person, they're really close. Like, I've had a couple of brothers that I've lost on the road because I was so far away. Even if I made it home in time, I still wouldn't be in time for a funeral, right? So I had to make a lot of choices to not come home for these important events in our family. So
Then I could certainly see how that would be extremely difficult and very painful, because community is so important to Indigenous people, and family relationships are everything. That is your support structure. So it was interesting, though, what you mentioned about how it was almost like a reverse bias that you've experienced with regards to continuing the initiative to follow your construction career in order to provide a better life for yourself. And thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting. So at our next question, at what age did you know you wanted to get into the trades? And was there a specific moment that you can recall that basically led you here? Again, we'll start with Raven.
At a young age, I've always kind of liked to work with my hands. I did work, like I said, in an office for a good number of years. That was great. And, you know, at one point I felt I needed to switch it up and change my surroundings and my location to open my opportunity of employment. So I moved to the Lower Mainland, which then I got into the healthcare field, and I loved that job. I loved everything about it. People loved me and what I did and the care I provided. The only thing that really I couldn't handle about that job is that they, you know, because I got so emotionally attached to them, you know, being born and raised in a community where we're to treat our elders with respect, and, you know, just, you know, in general, you know, it's somebody's grandmother, mother, a father, brother, right? And when they pass on, I found that very difficult to cope with. So I changed my career and I got into the plumbing, and it's more of a hands-on. You know, it's not emotionally attaching. You know, you do get stressed out by thinking about certain things, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, more of another day, really. And, you know, on the job, we always, a saying we like to say, it is what it is, right? Yeah, and I enjoy it because it's physically demanding. It keeps me on my toes, builds relationships, it builds my character, and I'm enjoying what I do.
Wonderful, thank you. And how about you, Angie? Was there any specific moment that you knew you wanted to get into the trades?
it was, you know, when I was doing the Access to Trades program, I've always been in some form of trades, as a painter, as a drywaller. I just, in our family, we have this saying where, you know, you're a jack of all trades, but a master of none. I wanted to change that, and I wanted to show the younger generation, my nephews and nieces, that, you know, just because they call us a stupid Indian doesn't mean we are. We're very smart and we're very adaptable creatures. And, you know, I went for electrical because it was considered a really, really hard trade to do. And it was, you know, it pushed me almost to my limits. And, but yeah, at that moment, to get into electrical, to actually sit in the class, to learn, it was, yeah, I've always been in trades. And at 25, it was time for a change, time to let the party go, as they say.
Yeah, a little bit of now we have to be an adult, I guess, at that age.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think everybody goes
someday.
through that to some degree, no matter what the profession is that they're working in. So count me in. Um,
Yeah.
so, what do you love about the work that you do? And we'll start again with Raven.
What I love about the work that I do is it gives me a sense of achievement. And when you work in the industry that I'm in, it's like learning from the inside out, if you understand. Um, for example, you look at a building and think, wow, that's beautiful. But when I look at the same building, I'm saying the same things, although I'm looking at the inside of it and how they built it and the internal functions of it. Um, I love working with others and seeing the steps through from the ground up and finishing. Um, I enjoy, you know, just seeing the job through from the beginning to the end. I have a portfolio of pictures that I've taken from the rough-in stages to the finishing stages. I've also done custom homes, and just it's like an art in itself, so to say.
Awesome, thank you. And how about you, Angie? What do you love about the work that you do?
I love my work because I've got to travel all over BC, been to places I wouldn't never have thought to visit. I'm mostly an industrial electrician, so I work in hydro dams and hydro substations all over BC. And I just, my most exciting thing is learning how power is made from the hydro dams inside a generator. I've been inside and out of a generator. I've even walked the entire wall of a hydro dam, which is really scary. And to me, just learning how power is made, how it's created, and how we spread it all through the world. It's to me that was one of the most exciting times, was just being inside a hydro dam.
Wow, that's wonderful. So everybody who's listening in or watching right now, we just want you to know that we're going to be handing Angie's phone number out later. So when your power goes out, you can give her a call.
It's not my fault.
So on to our next question. And again, I'm going to start with Raven on this. Do you see an increase in the number of women working in trades, not just your trade, but in trades on the job sites when you're there? Say, for example, from when you started.
Yes, absolutely. There's quite a bit, and I noticed an increase in it, which is very exciting. Because for a number of years I felt like I was the only one, right? Because I've been on so many job sites that I, haven't engaged or came up, met another woman in the trades doing whatever else, whether it be plumbing or construction. But yeah, there's women out there in the rebar. There's women out there. They come in. They're cleaners. There is actually another girl on my site. She is an apprentice plumber at the moment, which is very exciting. I actually have a girl working with me. And there's carpenter women out there, which is really nice. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when you pass each other's, we just we just smile at each other and say, hey, and just continue on. I like a little bit of excitement, but not too much excitement. You don't want to let them know that we're excited. I don't know. But yeah, no, I'm really proud to see more women getting out there and doing, challenging themselves and proving themselves to themselves, and that we can do just as much as others can as well. My daughter is very inspired by what I do. She's, I even asked her to try to direct her in other areas because plumbing's such a physically demanding, and I've been in it and I know how it is, right? And I wanted to direct her somewhere where it's a little more, but she'll choose what she wants, and that's what she wants. And I said, okay, then that's what you want to do. And she's looking forward to going to BCIT, and yeah.
I think that's fantastic. And how about you, Angie? Have you seen an increase in the number of women working in the trades? Again, not just your trade, but in the trades on these different sites that you go and travel to work?
Oh, I know that more women are getting out there in trades. I think back about when I started in my electrical in pre-apprentice electrical here in Kamloops at the Thompson River University. When I started out of 6 electrical classes, I was the only woman. Um, and there was 2 First Nations, including me. So it was me and one other guy, First Nations. And out of the welding class, out of 3 welding class, I was the only woman in that class because part of our electrical is to do a bit of welding. And now I go up and I still visit TRU. I go in there and mentor some of the women programs that they start, their WIT programs. And I notice a big difference. There's like anywhere from 2 to 4 women in any given trades class, and I'm just excited when I see that. And yeah, on the jobs, I think about, when I was working up in Daco mine job, that job really gave me a huge perspective on how many women were actually in trades, not laborers, not including the cleaning ladies or the laborers. Um, I, in my electrical, out of 500 electricians, there was 1 in every 100 was First Nations, and 1 in every 300 was a female First Nations, and it was 1 in every 150 was a woman in trades on that job. And now you look at it, I was up in visiting Site C just before this COVEX happened, and up there just walking around, I saw at least 10 women on the tools. And that was really exciting for me. And I totally know what you mean. You don't even have to know these women's name, but when they see you on the job site, they just smile and they wave. They're like just so excited. Yay, there's another woman. Thank God. So I really understand that part. You just have to wave at them, just to perk up your day or something.
Well, and I think that that's sort of that camaraderie that you can only get from another woman too in those situations. It's almost an unspoken, we get you, we understand, right?
Yeah, it's like a little moment of sanity. Yay.
Yeah, you're not the only one crazy enough to be there, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because and I like to try and keep things in perspective. I am a huge proponent of women in the skilled trades, and I've done a lot of work to that end on my own over the last 8 years, and promoting those sorts of things and creating those programs to actually look to have women engage in the skilled trades. And we talk about the trade shortage that we have here across the country and the hundreds of thousands of jobs that are going to be available. So when we take a look at women making up 51% of the population of this country, it only makes sense to tap into that labor pool. Because I know it, you know it, and everybody out there really truly does know it, that women are so capable of doing these sorts of things. And you no longer need to decide if you want to be a mother or a plumber or an electrician. You can be both now. You're not limited to, you're going to be this or that. You can do both, which I think is something when we start lifting women, we lift families, we lift children, we lift communities. So I'm a huge fan of women in the trades, and that's why I think I love you both so much. So for our next question, as a journey person, do you have or have you had an apprentice to mentor? And the reason why I'm asking that question is because sometimes, even though you're both journey persons, women are not necessarily the first journey person who will get an apprentice on a construction site or on an industrial site. So do you or have you had apprentices that you can mentor? And again, we'll start with Raven.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I have, and I have a few of them because on the job site I am right now, I'm basically the role of foreman. So I am running a crew of 7 guys and gals, and yeah, so every day is, I got a pre-plan, and I have to make sure that so and so is doing, or this person can do this, and keeping them busy. It's I love it because it sounds challenging, but it keeps my mind going, and it's making sure that we have material, making sure the deliveries are on time, making sure that we clear a floor and we move up to another floor efficiently, signing off on things. And like I said, the new apprentice that we have, she is a first year, and she's been on the site before I was on there. But when the COVID came, a bunch of them left, and they had to bring in some new people to come in and continue the job forward. So they sent me over to that job, and she came back after. And yeah, it's quite enjoyable working with another female and teaching her. And I also had a conversation with her because I could see the distress in her when I would give her some, just, her tasks to do. And I told her, I said, if you're not understanding or if you're not quite sure, I said, don't be afraid to ask me. I said, because, and then I shared with her my experience when I was an apprentice and how I felt, worried and that it wasn't good enough. And she's like, oh my God. And she had this big sigh of relief. She's like, you totally understand. And I was like, yeah. I said, I know how it is, and I didn't have anybody to share that with when I was in apprentice. And when I talk to people and when I deal with people, like they say, you treat people how you want to be treated, right? So, and I could see her just relaxed after that. And, she wasn't afraid to ask questions. And I told her, I said, now is the time that you need to, you're a first year apprentice and no question is a stupid question, because this is where you're at, you're learning. You can ask any question that you need, if you don't know how a tool is working, ask. I said, I would rather you ask me a question than pretend that you know what you're doing, because then that would scare me. And you would hurt yourself, and I don't want you to hurt yourself.
And,
so,
and that's really what apprenticing is all about, right?
Yeah.
Is learning these things from the journey people on the site, and having that knowledge passed down from journey person to apprentice as the apprentice progresses through that apprenticeship to Red Seal status. So, and how about you, Angie?
Funny thing is when I was an apprentice, I had apprentices working with me, and very rare we had journeymen. And as soon as I got my journeyman ticket, they only bring me journeymen to work with and train. I don't know why, but yeah, I've never really had my own apprentice to work with and train. But it doesn't mean that while I was on the same job as them, I wouldn't, lean over and kind of give them a helping hand, give them some hints, this is how I do it, because, I'm only so tall, and I'm kind of big, so I cannot fit in a lot of places. So I try to give them hints on how to, make yourself be able to fit in these places and be able to do these jobs, because we do have our limitations. Men have their limitations, but it's not as big deal as, say, a woman on a job who is, barely 5 feet, right? And then they say, oh, well, you're too short to be an electrician. And that's kind of weird, because then they say, whoa, great, you're the great size to go slide into these little cubby holes. And it's great. But, as having an apprentice, no, I've never been able to have an apprentice working with me. But I also have mentored in Aboriginal Women in Trades program. We had that going for about 3 or 4 years. And we just found it very hard to get these women you know, because we're pulling women from all over BC into Kamloops and to do their trades. And it's hard to ask these women to step away from their families for 10 weeks, you know, and that's very hard for a lot of women to do. But when I was in there, I you know, helped them to get you know, get an understanding the difference between living on reserve and working on reserve, I mean, and working off reserve. So
And I would
some
think that you
mentoring
would,
there.
I would think that you would probably be an excellent person to kind of bring that perspective forward, considering what you shared with us earlier, and the understanding that you have of knowing, like literally like being right there, and you understand it entirely. So certainly a resource to have around, Angie, that's for sure. So we're going to move on to our next question, and it is, have you faced discrimination on the job? So I want to expand on this a little bit, just a little bit. So when we talk about discrimination, I'm talking not just with regards to heritage, but also gender bias, because and I think you've kind of hinted at it a little bit, but in the forefront, I'm wondering which one would be more of an impact to you if you had experienced discrimination. Would it be your gender or would it be your heritage?
Okay, in my case, I guess it would be gender. I remember on one job site there, I was paired up with this man, and I was a first-year apprentice, and he was an older fella, so I guess you can say the old school. And it was an industrial site, and I was doing some pipe fitting, because in my apprenticeship you can go out as a pipe fitter. Although you're a plumber, it's like a little bridge. So I was out there doing some pipe fitting, and I remember one remark that was made to me, because it just seemed like every day he was never happy, and I could just tell that he was you know, something was bothering him. It was, I didn't know what. And then one day he just said to me, he said, you know, so he said, why did you get into plumbing anyways? You're so small. That's what he said to me. And I was like, oh, well, I said, I can do just as much as you can, you know. And he didn't like that answer either, but yeah, it's things like that. And then from that point on, I felt that, you know, it was almost like a competition where my mindset was later, because every job that I had to get onto, right, I knew at that point that I would be looked at differently, that people would look at me and, you know, just look at me and say, oh, she's a girl, or, you know, she can't lift this much, or, you know, she can't do what I can do. So from that point on, I set my mind to actually challenge myself in every aspect to do even more than they can. And I've been told by, you know, some of my foremans and people that I've worked with that I can, you know, I've outworked other men on sites and, you know, made them look bad, you know, which is, you know, funny.
I think we just lost Raven, so hopefully she can dial back in. And Angie, I'm going to ask you to answer that question for us as well.
Well, I'm going to go back to my very first union job, which was in Enderby substation. And I was, you know, so excited to finally get to work in the electrical industry and where I want to be, which was a substation. And when I got on site, this older fella who was like 77 and on his third retirement, and he comes to me and he looks at me up and down and he says, you know, I'm going to tell you something. I said, oh yeah, you know, I'm really excited to be there. He goes to me, he goes, you know, I'm going to tell you, I don't think women can do this job. They're only good for two things, and that's in the kitchen or the bedroom. I was like, wow, okay. And then he goes to tell me, he goes, you know what? I don't even think you Indians are even smart enough to even be here in my presence. And I just looked at him, wow, okay, biting my tongue. And I looked at him, and I'm a brand new apprentice, and I told him, well, you better hope that this goddamn Indian woman is smart enough to do this job, because I am the first aider on this site. And you look like you're 1 foot in the grave, and I might forget how to save you. And for 7 months on that job, wow, we ever locked horns. I think I only threw his tools once. And yeah, holy, I ended up started smoking again on that job. It was very frustrating. But on the last day of that job, when we were just finishing the cleaning up, packing up all our equipment and stuff, he comes up to me and he gives me this wooden ruler, a 2-foot wooden ruler that folded down into 6 inches. And he said that his father brought that over from England before he was even born. And he gave me this ruler, and I said, well, what do you want me to do with it? He goes, I want you to know every time you look at this ruler, you know that you survived one of the worst, how would you say, one of the worst situations, one of the toughest situations. And to know from here on that no matter what other people do to you, you can survive this job. You can do this job. And I just looked at him, and I was just like trying not to cry and trying not to hit him. Yeah, I was really moved that for 7 months he tortured me and trained me to be an electrician in the union, to working with real union men. And they really do have an attitude, that they're supposed to be better than me. But when they see me coming on the job and I can do their job, and I have foremen fighting over me because they know I can do the job of 2 to 3 men, that's, to me, that's really awesome to hear. But it also puts you on a bullseye, as they say, when you're on the job,
Yeah,
And
putting a bigger target on yourself
yeah,
to do that work, right? And you do it efficiently, and you do it well, and respect to both of you. I'm telling you, just respect. We
yeah.
would like to move on to the next question, and that is, what advice would you give to young women looking to enter the trades? And we'll start with Raven, please.
Hi. Sorry, my phone. I'm streaming from my phone, and a call came in. I tried to put it away, and it ended up going away. Sorry about that. Okay. Advice I would give to young women looking into the trades would be, trust yourself. Trust your judgments. Have confidence in yourself. You can do anything that a man can do as well, as long as you can challenge yourself and show up every day, give it 110%. Ask questions. Get entwined with things. Get interested in stuff. Keep a good work ethic. And it will build your character in the long run. I guess stay physically fit too, because it is physically demanding. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Raven. And how about you, Angie? What advice would you offer to young women who are thinking of entering the trades?
Well, I tell them my story that I just told you. And I would say you will always run into someone who will try to push you, who will try to call you down, who will try to belittle you. as much as they could to make themselves sound better. But if you, you know, create a bit of thick skin to this, you know, just let them, let them talk, but, you know, just let it bounce off you. You know, you can do this job. If I can do this job, and I'm not a very athletic person, but I can do this job. If I can do it, most likely you can do it. Because I always believe our next generations were born to be better than us. We were, you know, they were born to make things better. We, as this generation, we're here to try and clean up a lot of these jobs and make it easier for these women to come on. You know, we here in BC, we fought for certain programs to come in so that these women on the job will know that it is not safe to be in a locked room with too many men, and or know how to protect themselves on the job. So I would really just tell them, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
That's fantastic. And you raise an excellent point, both of you, with regards to that self-awareness and the confidence that's needed, and to recognize your surroundings as a woman. When you are working in a predominantly male-dominated field, right? So I'd like to move on to the next question, and it is, with the knowledge and the experience that you have in the trades, if you could go back to the beginning of your trades career, would there be anything that you would change or do differently? And we'll start with Raven.
I would have to answer no, because all my experiences, like I shared in my story in the beginning there, you know, everything happens for a reason. You know, we go through things and it builds our character. When we face things, you know, we gain something from it, whether it be strength or knowledge to continue forward. And, you know, it builds our character. So no, I wouldn't really change anything. I would actually just no, because I am where I am today because of everything in my trade that has gotten me here, from, you know, not knowing to learning to asking questions to facing some, you know, discrimination, overcoming barriers, working with people that are difficult, different characters, learning to be adaptable in certain settings, learning to be away from family, you know, that loss of connection and then reconnection has really, it's just made me who I am today. And yeah, I can honestly say that I'm a stronger, more confident person today. And yeah, I wouldn't change a thing.
Wow, that's awesome. So all the steps from there to here, every single one of them was worth taking.
Yes.
Okay. And how about you, Angie?
For me, at the beginning, I would have joined the union right off the get-go instead of listening to all them people say, oh, union's bad, this is bad. But yeah, I would have went to the union from day one. I would have had my ticket sooner. I would have been in different places sooner. But like Raven said, you know, the steps you take them for a reason. And I went to the private sector and I went through private companies and I learned about this law, how Canada says these people can hire you as a laborer for 6 months and not even let you work in your trade. You're just basically pushing broom for them. Yeah, I would have went to the union right away.
Wow, that's excellent. Excellent. And then on to the last question that we have today for this segment of the session is, as a woman in the trades, would you be interested in mentoring others in the trades? Because I think that the reason why I feel that this question is so important is because there are not a significant number of women in leadership roles like you are both in right now. Having somebody there who has walked that path, taken those steps, understands the dynamics, Is it something that you would be interested in doing to help encourage others, now male or female, in my perspective, just providing that mentorship for others? Would you be interested in doing something like that?
Absolutely. In my position right now, I actually am currently doing that. So no, yeah, I totally agree. I would actually be interested in mentoring others in the trade, which I already do right now.
And Angie, how about you?
Well, as an Indigenous woman in trades, as me and Raven are, every day we are always a mentor. You know, even if it is just to our family, to our children, or to our nephews and nieces, we're always mentoring. As in my job right now as an Indigenous coordinator, I have the privilege, well, before COVEX happened, I had the privilege of visiting numerous different reservations and communities through different job fairs and that, and to literally talk to First Nations and trying to get them out there and trying to get them right out of high school to try and go to school in trades, you know. And as my boss told me, the reason why I was hired was because most reserves or most First Nations is getting tired of another bald white man telling them what to do. Going on to their reserves and saying, hey, you should be in trades, but, you know, we don't listen to them, right? It isn't until you get a First Nations, not just a woman. I have another First Nations man who comes out and does some of these job fairs with me. And when we go to these reserves, I will watch them, these kids, go by all these white men with trades, you know, as a plumber, or this other guy, he was a millwright. And I'd see these guys, these kids from the reserves walk by these guys. But when they come to our booth and they see two First Nations sitting there saying, you know, this is the kind of life we have now. You know, we own our cars. We drive our own cars, right? We get to travel all over BC, you know. And when we tell these young First Nations that, yeah, you can get off the reserve and you can go to work, you can make lots of money, and you can come home. You can come home with your trades and work for your reserves, and, you know, bring up your community. The more people we can get into trades from all these communities, the better for that community. And yeah, as for mentoring, every day we get
Yep.
up, we mentor.
I agree, Angie, and I know that both the Aboriginal Apprenticeship Board, with what we do, and the Toronto Community Benefits Network, we both have mentoring aspects to our organizations, and we're always looking for role models that we can put forward. So certainly I will talk to you both at another time with regards to the Aboriginal Apprenticeship Board, but I certainly want to make sure that Brandon and the Toronto Community Benefits Network have the opportunity to perhaps engage both of you in the opportunity to mentor young people. I just think that it's so very important with what you've expressed so very clearly and adequately. Some of the challenges that Indigenous youth specifically face. Having Indigenous mentors stand up is kind of an indicator to them that success is possible, right? And that it's going to take hard work, and it's going to take dedication, but there are people there to help you along the way as well. So